Okay, so if you've been following along, I finally decided that it was time to put up the beams 8 months ago. It was a complete nightmare. We tried using 2x4s as the support structure, and those weren't straight, and the beams weren't straight. So we moved all of the wood back into the garage, sitting there for the last 8 months, taking up valuable real estate in the garage, and I was over it. So we finally pulled the beams back out, and I was determined to figure out a way to get these up on the ceiling. Two of the pieces of white oak will have a flat end that'll go against the ceiling, and the other side will have a 45-degree miter. The bottom piece of white oak will be cut at a 45-degree miter on both sides. Now it is time to cut the support pieces that are going to secure onto your poplar structure. These pieces are going to be every 18 to 24 inches. They don't have to be super systematically spaced. To cut your miters, you can run your wood either through a table saw or with a track saw, circular saw, and a long straight edge. And I highly recommend for either type of saw to be using a 24-tooth framing blade instead of a 60-tooth fine finish blade. I made some pocket holes in these little pieces, and I used wood glue and 1.25-inch pocket hole screws to secure it all together. If the beams that you're building are less than 10 feet, you can pre-assemble them using clear packing tape along the miters and just run a long bead of glue. Make sure that you're gluing up both sides and wrap these beams around your poplar structure. After running your stud finder all around your ceiling, figuring out where your joists are and marking them, the next thing that you want to do is take a chalk line and you're going to mark out the center of each one of your beams. From that center line, this is optional but also highly recommended, is to snap 2 additional chalk lines that are going to run on the outside of your poplar inner structure. If you don't know how wide your poplar is yet or your beams are yet, just keep your center lines. The very first thing that you need to do before you touch any wood is nail down your dimensions, and for this project, our longer beams were about 20 feet long and our shorter cross beams were 11 feet long. If you're lucky enough to be planning this beam project before drywall, I highly recommend adding in some cross bracing, which is basically a 2x4, a 2x6 that goes between one joist to the next joist to give your beam something to secure into. Assembling them this way will give you the tightest miter, but if that's not an option or you don't want to do it that way, you can do it the exact way that we did it, which is one board at a time. After securing the poplar structure to the ceiling joist using 3-inch wood screws, we applied glue to all of the edges of the poplar and went piece by piece, starting with the left, then the bottom, then the right, lining up our miters as best as we could as we went. You're definitely going to want 3, if not more, people to help hold all of these pieces in place, and one person using a 16-gauge finishing nail gun to nail the white oak directly into the poplar. When you're measuring to cut your white oak, be sure that you're measuring not only at the ceiling height, which is going to be the length of your poplar and your sides, but also at the bottom where your bottom piece is going to go. Even though you're positioning your laser level just 8 inches further down the wall, a lot of the times, it's a pretty big difference in your measurement because of the drywall bead and extra mud that ends up piling up in the corners. And the last thing that you want to do is cut your bottom piece of white oak too short.
maybe that's what it sounds like when you miss.
After all of the beams are installed, you can go back through and fill in any of those gaps. I tried doing the screwdriver trick, which is running the shaft of the screwdriver along the wood to try to bend the fibers to close up the miter. However, it didn't work because my wood was just way too dense. Wood filler, which to a lot of carpenters is like a big no-no, but I ended up finding Timbermate white oak wood filler, and it was hands down the best color match to white oak that I've been able to find. I overfilled the miter and then sanded everything down with 80 grit because I wanted to keep a little bit of that texture rustic look. I also chose to caulk along the ceiling and the beam where it hit because there were some spots that it was a little bit further away from the ceiling and had a bigger gap, and other spots that it was actually really tight and snug. But because I did caulk around each one of the beams, I chose to tape everything off and paint after the beam installation instead of painting before the beam installation. And because these beams are on the ceiling, they're not going to be touched by little fingers or spilled on, and they're not going to get direct sunlight, so I opted to not seal them and just to leave them rustic and raw. These beams seriously transform this ceiling from what was an afterthought to something that everybody notices when they come into the room, and it truly separates this room from the rest of the space. The full blog post tutorial is linked below in the captions, and if you have any questions, drop them in the comments.